Standing on the same battlefield as the Thousand Suns is an ordeal that risks not only physical harm, but also challenges one's sanity and soul. These sorcerers are peerless in their mastery, channeling volatile warp energies to reshape destinies, mutate living flesh, and perceive the thoughts and intentions of friend and foe alike. Confronting such a formidable legion means facing the unleashed Imperium, whose advance is announced by fiery magical storms and relentless barrages of warp-infused shells and bolts. As the lines collide, monstrous herds, mutants, chaos spawn, and gibbering abominations surge forward with ferocity, supported by flame-belching demons and colossal beast-like war engines that tear, throttle, and consume everything in their path. Yet, the devastation wrought by the Thousand Suns surpasses mere destruction. Their most terrifying power is the insidious uncertainty they sow. Illusions and deception are second nature to these wicked champions of Zinch, causing their enemies to doubt even their own perceptions of victory. Many who believe they have defeated the sorcerers may unknowingly serve malicious forces, manipulated through subtle tricks and mysterious stratagems. The fate of the Thousand Suns is inseparably linked to their dread progenitor, Magnus the Red, the ancient and mighty demon Primarch. Millennia of obscurity have left remnants of his story, encapsulated in secret vaults beneath the Imperial Palace and guarded by the Legion itself, though these accounts are often conflicting and unreliable. Once a direct son of the Emperor, Magnus was a symbol of wisdom and power, serving as master with noble intent. Over time, however, he became embittered and corrupted, a shadow of his former self. Now a towering demonic figure, Magnus is enhanced by the dark blessings of Zinch, embodying sorcery incarnate. His form is a massive winged behemoth whose very presence shatters the fabric of reality, plunging enemies into chaos. His exceptional power allows him to annihilate entire legions with a single command or devastating gaze, wielding a warp-saturated blade that can change shape at will, capable of breaching fortress walls or destroying mighty war engines with a single strike. His rune-engraved armor offers immunity against both physical and spiritual assaults, while his flesh, saturated with warp energy, renders him virtually immortal. Magnus's mere existence warps reality into fractured reflections, and his presence erodes the sanity of those who oppose him. He stands as a nexus of chaos and manipulation, a repository of forbidden knowledge, and a master of deception. Yet, he was not always so malevolent. Historical records about Magnus's transformation and descent into darkness are hidden deep beneath the Imperial Palace, or held by the Thousand Suns, though history within those ranks is often unreliable, subject to lies and conflicting accounts. If someone were to recall Magnus's origin, they might describe a tall, powerful figure with red skin and hair, quick-witted and ever eager to dispense counsel. Still, even his closest followers knew that beneath this exterior lay a troubled mind, brimming with arcane secrets and haunted by the shadows of his own becoming. The Thousand Suns Legion, both gifted and cursed with a heightened presence of sorcerers among its ranks, faced peril not only from their mutation, but also from the suspicion of their brother legions. The Emperor, wary of their growing psychic powers, is said to have forbidden Magnus and his sons from further delving into their arcane abilities. Yet, driven by a self-righteous desire to push beyond these constraints, Magnus chose to ignore the decree, ultimately condemning himself, his gene sons, and their homeworld of Prospero. The Space Wolves, led by Primarch Leman Russ, are remembered for their legendary mission to bring Magnus to reason. Though the specific details of the devastating conflict that ensued are lost to history by the 41st millennium, its aftermath is unmistakable. Russ's legion devastated Prospero, shattering the crystalline pyramids of knowledge and nearly annihilating the betrayed Thousand Suns. In their darkest hour, when faith in the Emperor was utterly shattered, Magnus sacrificed himself, offering to the chaos god Zinch in exchange for the salvation of his legion. Magus and his followers were then transported to Sortiarius, a planet deep within the warp, a realm characterized by chaos and boundless power. This world became the sanctuary of the Thousand Suns for countless millennia. However, their struggles persisted. Magnus's physical and mental forms had been irrevocably transformed by his pact, as had those of his gene sons. Ahriman, the architect of the infamous Rubric, stood out among them. As the greatest sorcerer after Magnus himself, Ahriman's devotion was singular. He sought the salvation of his cursed legion above all else. Ironically, despite his centuries of mastery and intellect, Ahriman's efforts only exacerbated their plight. Initially, the Thousand Sons believed Sorcerers to be a safe haven, a refuge amidst the chaos of the Imperium, free to practice their arts. However, they soon discovered it was a realm of torment, plagued by a rapid and terrifying physical mutation known as the flesh change, a curse feared to threaten their entire legion with madness and monstrosity if it continued unchecked. Magnus, consumed by his studies and thirst for vengeance, remained passive, offering no aid. Instead, Ahriman and his fellow sorcerers devised a desperate solution known as the Rubric, which enforced a brutal suppression of their innate powers. This operation, while halting the flesh change, came at a terrible cost. It condemned the Legion to eternal damnation. As punishment, Magnus expelled his gene sons, banishing them until they could understand the true nature of the chaos god Zinch, an impossible task they were condemned to pursue forever. Ahriman, unrepentant as ever, shifted his focus entirely toward a single purpose: to restore his legion to its former glory. His goal was not merely to undo the dark alterations wrought by his own sorcery, but to elevate his followers back to a position of power unseen since before the Emperor's wolves shattered them. Since that devastating event, Ahriman has left behind a trail of chaos across the stars, gathering anyone he could manipulate, be they mutant factions, zealot worshippers of the ruinous gods, or rebellious outsiders, hoping to leverage them in his quest for redemption. He deeply believes that unraveling the secret of restoring his brethren is within his power. No act, no matter how heinous or forbidden, is beyond his reach if it might lead to his ultimate goal. To his enemies, his campaigns of destruction seem reckless and wild, yet beneath that chaos lies a calculating mind. In battle, Ahriman wields the Black Staff, a corrupt artifact of dark forces manifesting as a burning void in the warp. He fashioned this weapon himself, its tip adorned with a gemstone of concealed truth, recovered from ancient ruins of the planet Tisa. The staff is crowned with the severed horns of Vad Hakar, the demon prince of annihilation, while its shaft incorporates charred fragments of his own lost staff, destroyed during the Space Wolves' invasion on Prospero. This weapon's blade is forged from the remains of an ancient desecrated seer staff, a relic of the erstwhile Alari Farseers. Each addition to the staff imbues it with more potent sorcerous energy, thick with destiny and capable of amplifying Ahriman's inherent psychic powers. The transformation of the Thousand Sons under his command marked a turning point. It was arguably the most profound and tragic change they endured. Once a brotherhood of scholar warriors, they were twisted by the warp's corrupting influence into something far more grotesque. The warp's power is inherently destabilizing. It causes mutation and chaotic transformation in its vicinity. This energy is unpredictable, capable of shaping beings in ways that often reflect their deepest fears, desires, or secrets. Many believe the Thousand Sons had been marked by the chaos god Zinch long before their true downfall, while others claim their relentless pursuit of forbidden knowledge, whether through demonic entities or arcane energies, ultimately led to their violent metamorphosis. Their obsession with enlightenment and quest for understanding resulted in physical and mental degradation, leaving their records amidst the chaos to tell tales of mutation, decay, and madness as they mastered the planet of the Sorcerers. Once possessing strong and versatile limbs, these warriors transformed into vibrant tentacles and clawed hands. Their old talents of writing or learning were replaced by deadly skills or vicious appendages, such as snapping pincers. Multiple sons, once battle brothers, sprouted a myriad of staring eyes, fiery-colored wings adorned with shimmering feathers, and strange, fanged entities whispering secrets capable of eroding sanity. Many of these mutations proved to be potent blessings, enhancing warriors' combat prowess or sorceress talents. However, even these gifts came at a cost, often eroding their sense of self. The more grotesque curses, on the other hand, reduced once proud soldiers and scholars into frantic, flesh-covered husks of bone and muscle. Few doubt that Aaron and his allies saved their legion from an ultimate plunge into chaos, yet the fate they condemned their brothers to was arguably even worse. The Ahriman Cabal carried out their spell without Magnus's consent. His chronicles reveal how their work was concealed behind powerful illusions and how they operated with supernatural stealth. It's possible they escaped Magnus's notice altogether, distracted at the time by schemes of vengeance and the pursuit of knowledge. No reliable records remain of what the Thousand Sons did during the cataclysmic events of the Horus Heresy, but these also cloud the true nature of Aaron's intentions, making it difficult for Magnus to intervene in time. The 9 great tomes describe the spell of Aaron as an unimaginably destructive force, unleashing an overwhelming ripple and a deafening cry across the Imperium and into the depths of the warp. They depict a catastrophic storm of sorcery that engulfed Sorcerers, akin to a violent explosion of binding and wresting magic so intense it created an impossible point of stability amidst the chaos. Strands of fate were seized and compressed into crystalline stasis like insects trapped in amber, while lightning storms repeatedly struck from Sorcerers' skies, each blast reducing another of the Thousand Sons to ash. According to the records, Magnus ultimately ended the assault only by pleading with Zinch to intervene. By that point, however, the damage was irreversible. Every single son caught in the sorceress' onslaught was turned into inert dust, forever sealed within their armor. Their minds and spirits were annihilated, leaving behind only echoes trapped within their cursed war gear. These remnants lingered as hollow shells, haunted and barely alive, forever slaves to their former masters. Only the Legion's librarians, unaffected by the Rubric spell, due to their proximity to Magnus himself, survived, their powers greatly enhanced rather than diminished. Thus, the Legion was forever altered, cursed to its current form. It is believed Magnus once sought to eliminate Aaron and his conspirators, but Zinch's will was clear. Instead of death, Magnus's loyal chief librarian and favored son was exiled, leaving the Legion irrevocably changed under the Crimson King's gaze. Sun King set about salvaging what remained of his legion, which had now splintered into 2 factions. The fully sentient members, the Sorcerers, had been empowered and transformed by the Rubric, becoming the Legion's commanders and Magnus's champions. Meanwhile, the remaining followers, the Rubric, had been reduced to dust and echoes, serving as the Legion's foot soldiers. These spirits retained only the ability to follow direct commands, responding solely to those who could speak their true names and thus command them. As obedient tools, they became living weapons in the hands of their sorceress masters, who pledged to serve Magnus's will. Yet more often than not, their true allegiance was driven by their own ambitions. Magnus might have feared that his legion was nearing its end. New space marines were being created through a grim process involving the removal, culturing, and implantation of genoseed, a supernatural substance that spurred the growth of the organs necessary to transform ordinary humans into the mighty warriors of the Imperium. But in the Rubric, all had turned to dust. The genoseed extracted from fallen sorcerers seemed to take root only within recruits possessing extraordinary psychic talents, a very limited pool. This stark contradiction posed a terrible challenge. How could they sustain their numbers amid relentless warfare? The truth of this dilemma was veiled, but somehow the Thousand Sons discovered rituals of rebinding. If a fallen Rubric warrior's armor was pieced back together with the proper, perilous rites performed, their dust and ghostly echoes could be summoned back into existence. Their warlike spirits would be revived, their power restored, and the cursed unlife of the Thousand Sons would endure. As long as even one sorcerer survived to recover a fallen Rubric from a battlefield and recite the sacred words, the Legion's cursed immortality endured. Since the Rubric, The Thousand Sons had become one of the most bizarre and eclectic among the heretical forces. Their warbands included sorcerers, rubric warriors, and an array of infernal war engines, mutants, enslaved beings, and other unnatural entities. They fought not only to seize knowledge or twist destiny, but also to avenge ancient wrongs, or sometimes for motives so mysterious and arcane that they seemed driven by madness. Yet beneath this chaos there was always a purpose. The core of most Thousand Sons warbands remained the cursed rubric warriors, silent, formidable sentinels. These warriors possessed many advantages in combat. Their unwavering obedience was absolute, as they responded solely to the invocation of their true names. They knew nothing of fear or hesitation, nor even of self-preservation. Physically resilient to both mental and physical harm, these spectral fighters lacked true flesh and bone, existing instead as incorporeal forms. They could only be destroyed through catastrophic dismemberment or by completely wrecking the armor that housed their essence, rendering them forever powerless. Achieving this feat involves understanding that the insore dust of the Rubric Marines often disperses and is lost over time. Yet regardless of how long a warrior remains in a state of apparent death, they can often be reanimated and restored to their cursed existence. Persistent haunting whispers suggest that the Rubric's influence extends even to the past, to those Thousand Sons who existed before their transformation was complete. How such a mind-bending and sanity-shattering process occurs remains a mystery, but history shows that multiple warbands have descended upon ancient battlegrounds from the earliest days of Imperial history to plunder relics and knowledge. Though these dark forces have lost true consciousness, their memories of their former talents remain. During battle, these reanimated beings invoke the martial prowess they once possessed, now intensified with formidable arcane weaponry supplied by their necromantic masters. They unleash relentless barrages from infernal bolt guns and screaming soul reaper cannons, or envelop foes in destructive flames that burn away both flesh and spirit. Skilled in close combat as well, the Rubric Marines fight with the speed and grace of living beings, moving with poised ferocity as if fully alive. Only when the fighting ceases and foes are vanquished do they revert into a mindless, dormant state until summoned again. Interestingly, even this inert phase can work to their advantage. During urban conflicts, certain Rubric units have been disguised as statues, blending seamlessly into the chaos of battle. At a single command from their master, they can suddenly spring to life and launch surprise attacks. For example, during the raid on Vannervoid docks, 50 Rubric Marines concealed themselves within the wreckage of an Imperial bulk carrier. They drifted undetected behind enemy lines, only to reanimate and board the targeted ship, seemingly abandoned. Some sorcerers even seal Rubric Marines inside alien tombs or hidden vaults of forbidden knowledge, summoning them only when their guardians are disturbed or their caches are threatened. The core of any Thousand Sons raiding force often relies on these Rubric Marines and elite scarab occult terminators, known for their resilience and formidable combat skills. However, they are not the only assets available to their commanders. Many sorcerers supplement these forces with numerous expendable slaves and servants, an endless tide of captives, prisoners, and cultists. Throughout the Imperium, cults dedicated to the chaos god Zinch proliferate, comprising the desperate, the mad, the mutated, and the cunning. These factions worship Zinch, seeking power to alter their helpless existences, and they often support invasions with untimely uprisings or by filling the hold of warships with chaos-driven fighters. Their contributions bolster the Thousand Sons' relentless campaigns, turning even the smallest cultist act into a crucial element of their dark, unyielding assault. Prepared for deployment like living artillery, the herds of Zangar II serve as flesh and blood armies for their sorcerers. These mutants are pure products of the domain of Zinch, carrying the divine mark of the change god and safeguarded by magic and unnatural fate. They consist of savage kin, both human and beast, yet possess extraordinary proficiency with ancient weapons, demonstrating remarkable skill in combat. Leading them are cunning shamans endowed with innate magical prowess, capable of acting as lieutenants to the sorcerer lords of the Thousand Sun, or even commanding their own raiding parties. The Legion also deploys war machines, massive tanks with roaring engines and thunderous artillery. Many of these battle vehicles still function, though some have endured mutations or been taken over by demonic entities, becoming twisted vessels for Zinch's influence. These monstrous contraptions, crafted by warp smiths skilled in dark arts, are often acquired through barter, force, or hypnotic control. Groups of armored transports, tank packs, and feral demon engines often provide overwhelming firepower and agility during campaigns. The Thousand Sons are not averse to stealing such assets from rival factions or forging fragile alliances that tend to end badly for their temporary allies. Despite their chaotic nature, the Legion adheres to a strict hierarchical order established by Magnus the Red after the Rubric. This structure has largely persisted through the ages, maintaining a facade of discipline. From his stronghold in the Tower of the Cyclops, the top of Sorcerers, Magnus rules supreme, his single-eyed demon Primarch, overseeing all with an insidious gaze, subtly manipulating events in his favor. Beneath Magnus, his closest lieutenants, known as the Rahati and the Magister Templi, govern the 9 great coils, elite cabals composed of sorcerer lords and demon princes. These powerful figures, favored by Zinch's own influence, constantly vie for dominance. The fickle favor of the Change God makes the political landscape perilous, as fallen warlords often suffer tragic ends. Though no one dares challenge Magnus himself, the ambitious Rahati fiercely guard their power, scheming through conquests, devastating rituals, and complex schemes to outmaneuver rivals. Their constant machinations create a volatile hierarchy, where treachery and ambition drive the relentless struggle for mastery within the Legion. In the chaotic realm of the Thousand Sons, schemes driven by the ambitions of their eldritch leaders constantly unfold, especially if one of these ancient beings steps onto the battlefield. Such entities often serve as instruments for these arcane plots, turning their unfortunate foes into mere sacrifices for their insatiable desires. These beings possess some of the most formidable mystical artifacts in existence, wielding powers that grant mastery over mutation, illusion, and transformation. Each of their grand temples stands as a force comparable to entire armies, underscoring their overwhelming influence. The central power within the Legion comprises numerous cabals, formed by powerful sorcerers, infernal masters, and lesser demon princes. Just as the Legion itself is divided into 9 primary cults, each cult is led by a coven of 9 champions directing their efforts across the galaxy. Such leadership is not the entire picture. Many sorcerers and infernal champions operate covertly, rarely answering to Magnus the Primarch or revealing their full strength during conflicts. Over the past 10,000 years, the Legion has seldom gathered its complete might, and due to the natural illusions and tricks favored by their sorcerers, no one can be certain of the true extent of Magnus's hidden forces. Within this secretive hierarchy, many champions vie for greater influence, constantly seeking to enhance their power and climb the ranks. Those leading warbands aim to acquire the arcane knowledge and infernal influence necessary to ascend to the exalted rank, those who command entire warbands and are capable of shaping the course of battles. Meanwhile, the exalted sorcerers and infernal masters focus on plotting to expand their authority within the ruling cabals, ever seeking to grasp the position of the Mice Templi for themselves. The trauma inflicted by the arcane rituals of Ahriman has left a lasting scar on the collective psyche of the Legion, making open conflict among champions rare. Magnus, their Primarch, strictly forbids his followers from squandering lives for petty rivalries and punishes harshly those who do. Due to their limited numbers, most Thousand Sons are reluctant to risk their future through reckless violence. Instead, cunning and manipulation become their most valued tools. Demons whisper dark secrets into the minds of those still sentient enough to listen, offering dangerous pacts, hidden knowledge, and promises of unparalleled power for the shrewd and subtle. Amidst this web of intrigue and peril, many champions find sanctuary with the remnants of Magnus's former bodyguards. These elite warriors, clad in stylized Terminator armor and wielding ceremonial power blades inspired by ancient traditions, stand as a formidable force, guardians and enforcers in a universe where treachery and ambition constantly collide. Within the lore of the Legion, their esoteric knowledge is meticulously inscribed onto their armor plates, a sacred duty aimed at safeguarding these precious secrets. Once their essences became ensnared in the remaining arcane inscriptions, they absorbed immense power, rendering these wards even more formidable. These second-generation guardians are accessible to any sorcerer, infernal master, or demon prince of the Thousand Sons, provided they possess the necessary knowledge to command them. Once bound, their loyalty is unwavering, and they fight with relentless intensity to defend their ward from all threats beneath the level of their champions. Beyond the core champions, the Thousand Sons and their allies, there exists a sprawling underworld of chaos cults. These include bands of Rubric herds, Zor tribes, and Serval followers, all filling the ranks of chaotic factions. Alongside these, allied or manipulated renegade chaos space marine warbands operate within this chaos. Dark Mechanicum Magi supply arcane technological knowledge or provide armaments and ammunition from distant worlds, while demonic entities are called into service through binding rituals. Mortal psychers are often recruited as acolytes or sacrificed to further the Legion's dark ambitions. Few tools are off limits to the Thousand Sons in their pursuit of power, and they are willing to strike deals or break promises if it serves their objectives. Their 9 great cults, each distinct yet interconnected, are formidable, representing fragmentary bodies devoted to different aspects of the changeling of the ways. These cults worship different facets like stolen knowledge, cunning, or manipulation of time, shaping their warfare strategies accordingly. While sometimes competing among themselves, they always aim to serve the greater cause of the Legion, often at the expense of their enemies. Each cult specializes in a particular aspect of the Legion's power, which influences their tactics, grand designs, and methods of warfare across the galaxy. To advance their plans, every cult maintains its own cabal of Zinch champions, along with squads of Sment and Rubric, powerful war engines, demon-constructed war machines, and smaller groups of Zinch worshippers. These forces fluctuate greatly in number from one campaign to the next, reflecting the dynamic and secretive nature of their operations. Furthermore, each cult is divided into numerous Thra bands, which vary depending on the sorcerers leading them. Some operate independently, pursuing secret schemes or personal quests that deem large forces a hindrance, utilizing hidden pathways such as warp portals and webway routes for swift, covert strikes. Others assemble multiple bands for larger offensives or to defend valuable targets. These varied strategies demonstrate the adaptable and clandestine approach of the Legion's forces, always driven by the ever-changing influence of their leaders and the dark, chaotic power they serve. The formidable Zinch's designs often require extraordinary events to unite the mighty forces of the Legion and compel them to act as a cohesive whole. Such moments are rare, yet when they occur, they cause even the stars to tremble with awe. A recent and devastating example was Magnus's vengeful assault on the Space Wolves' planet of Fenris. The conflict left the area scarred and tainted. The Space Wolves suffered severe losses, while the neighboring world of Midgardia was sacrificed entirely to fuel a powerful ritual driven by Magnus's will. This dark enchantment momentarily summoned Soriartius from the warp's depths, allowing it to take shape around the same star as the long-ago forsaken world of Prospero. This clash represented one of the Thousand Sons' most significant victories in millennia. Still, it was only the beginning of Magnus's intricate, labyrinthine scheme for retribution and justice. The planet of Soriartius, home to the Sorcerers, bears no semblance of natural order. It is a realm perpetually in flux, a realm of raw, unbounded magical energy. It is a demon world, a chaotic convergence of arcane forces confined only by the changeless chaos of the chaos god of change. The Thousand Sons have claimed this realm, plundering its dark secrets without mercy or restraint. Although Magnus succeeded in bringing Soriartius from the warp into real space, the planet remains a twisted, cursed world hostile to natural life. Its atmosphere whirls with kaleidoscopic storms of raw magic, skies shimmering with unnatural lights that constantly shift into terrifying shapes. Clouds streak across the sky with hues of fire, forming demonic faces and glaring eyes before shattering amidst eruptions of violet and blue lightning. Torrents of chaotic energy rain down upon mountains of bone and plains of flesh and fire, flowing in mutating currents back into boiling, unnatural oceans that pulse between the shifting continents of this unstable realm. The only constant in Sorcerers' bizarre geography is Tisa, once the capital city of Prospero. Its remnants were carried into this chaos along with the thousand suns themselves. Over the millennia, the city has transformed beyond recognition. Where once gleaming crystalline pyramids stood, now colossal structures of veined stone rise, glowing with dark runes and shimmering warp fire. These edifices are of impossible geometries, adorned with grotesque gargoyles that leer from their surfaces. Former towers of marble and gold have become colossal obelisks, towering skeletons of bone and fleshy material, around which flocks of demonic abominations swarm. Enormous shape-shifting towers mark the landscape, but none outmatch the towering monolith of the Tower of the Cyclops. This immense structure dominates the planet's surface, its highest levels housing Magnus's personal sanctuary. From this pinnacle, a radiant, iridescent light pours forth, emanating from an entombed tempest of glowing arcane energy, a source of immense, uncontainable power. Enveloped by a fierce gale of warp energy, the tempest is encased within a shield of profane wards. From his vantage point in the eye of this chaotic storm, Magnus observes the intricate web of paths weaving through time, past, present, and future. For countless centuries, he has watched the cosmos unfold from his towering fortress, carefully orchestrating strategies of retribution. The sanctum of Sorcerers serves not only as a retreat for study and experimentation, but also as a strategic stronghold in endless conflicts. Its sprawling interior holds a vast library of stolen and forbidden lore, standing side by side with bubbling alchemical laboratories, filled with unnatural fumes and echoing with the screams of ever-changing experimental subjects. Labyrinthine corridors lead to hidden chambers of sorcery, scrying halls, sacrificial altars, summoning circles, and repositories of arcane secrets, all utilized by the mighty cults of the Thousand Suns to bolster their relentless war effort. Additional structures within the fortress serve Magnus's grand objectives. The immense 9-tiered pit known as the Abyssal Mole is a forge where demonic engines and armored war machines are created, repaired, or conscripted into service. Above it, the shimmering spire of glass, a living crystalline construct, houses the void docks, constantly rotating through ninefold astral alignments. High above, the sanctums of the Cyclops Tower contain unstable warp portals which, with precise mastery and favorable circumstances, allow travel across vast cosmic distances, bypassing the defenses of even the most formidable enemies. Among the most critical assets are the obelisks of ruin, geometrical constructs unique in form and function that serve as the planetary orbital defenses. These intricate spells weave an overwhelming protective net around the planet, stretching from pole to pole. It is believed that Sorcerers possesses knowledge of the vulnerabilities of anyone daring to assault it, often exploiting torn apertures and enemy defenses via twisted sorcery. Whether these defenses possess true sentience remains uncertain, yet history confirms that nearly every attack on the Thousand Suns' homeworld has ended disastrously. Tempests of writhing warp flames erupt in the void, engulfing stealthy intruders, while illusions and glamour deceive attackers' senses, causing chaos and disarray. Men attempting direct assault find themselves misled by illusions into attacking one another, even as their sensor networks become overwhelmed with conflicting signals or go mad with corrupted data. Warheads detonate in sealed magazines, warp drives catastrophically rupture, and entire fleets vanish in destructive fashion, all part of the unnatural fate met by those who seek to besiege Sorcerers with harmful intent. Beyond the shifting boundaries of Tisa, Sorcerers lies a realm of bizarre and ever-changing landscapes. Known mostly to the Thousand Suns, this world features landmarks such as the Nomad Peaks, the shimmering Amaric Plains, forests of twisting tentacles, glass fires within chasms, and predatory caverns filled with transmutation energies. These locations are in constant flux, driven not only by tectonic shifts but also by the phases of Sorcerers itself, which are influenced by the positions of star systems and sister worlds, as well as the flow of warp energies across the planet's surface. Amidst these strange terrains, the Sangor herds persist, living their chaotic cycles of existence, preying upon each other and on chaotic spawn that haunt the wilderness. They tend to avoid the enormous Moth vortex beasts, apex predators that seem unnatural even within this realm. The Sangors seek to carve out fragile territories, channeling the planet's latent sorceress energies in places where ley lines converge. They achieve this by erecting duplicated cairns, mimic structures, across other worlds' wilds, enabling the flow of Zin's power through real space. The longer these illusions endure, the more unstable empiric energies seep through, corrupting the natural environment and sowing chaos. Before a full-scale invasion can unfold, the fall of Ultimus to the forces of the Thousand Suns involves complex strategies, deception, misdirection, and manipulation of fate, along with the calculated sacrifice of allies and enemies alike. What may appear to be the entire scope of the conflict can, in reality, be but one thread in a vast, intricate web of schemes. This was precisely the case when Hakatali set his sights on the fortress world of Ultimus and its central bastion, Fortress Isla. When the Indominus Crusade fleet, Quintus, pushed through the Misto sector, it reclaimed vital systems for the Imperium. These realms remained well defended, with 10 regiments of heavily armed soldiers guarding the towering fortifications of Ultimus. Subterranean bunker complexes held by the Scaran occupied key underground sites, while maniple of Leo Decimator Titans roamed the irradiated deserts. Orbitally, squadrons from the battle fleet Pacificus patrolled approaches, making the world seem nearly impregnable, yet Atali, a cunning Rahadi magister and Templar of the cult of scheming, resolved to conquer Ultimus in the name of zeal. His motivation was multifaceted: to demonstrate his dominance, to prove the might of his cult by conquering an apparently impregnable imperial world, and to take a strategic prize. His campaigns also threatened the sorceress sanctum he maintained on Vioria's moon, aiming to seize a powerful magical relic, the Talisman of Glass, believed to be held by an inquisitor, as learned from a demonic familiar. Despite formidable defenses, Atali's plans reflected a deeper desire to undermine imperial authority by exploiting the world's shifting and tumultuous nature, emphasizing the complex interplay of ambition, deception, and the mystic energies that pervade these chaotic realms. Deep within the vaults of Ultimus, a rival faction led by Rahadi Horus Heresy, a figure linked to the cult of magic, sought to seize a priceless relic. Atali, determined to secure it first, launched a strategic campaign filled with deception. His initial move involved spreading false information across the Misto sector, employing manipulated mortal cult agents. He ensured that a novice sorcerer within the cult received misleading intelligence about a mythical demon sword falsely claimed to be buried beneath the mountains of Norris. The lie suggested that dig teams from the Adeptus Mechanicus were close to uncovering this legendary weapon. While these falsehoods spread among the cult's ranks, Atali personally summoned a demonic entity. The creature materialized before Hapfester, an esteemed sorcerer recently fallen out of favor with Rahadi. Desperate to regain his standing and craving power, Fester was eager to uncover the secrets behind the supposed demon blade. The demon's whispers revealed that the relic was hidden and guarded by one of his acolytes. Information Fester swiftly relayed to Rahadi, believing that possessing the legendary weapon would bolster his chances in the looming confrontation with Ultimus. Karis, meanwhile, initiated an offensive on Norris, engaging his forces in a fierce clash with the Adeptus Mechanicus. Amid this chaos, his plans to lure and trap the Mechanicus forces were underway. Simultaneously, Atali set other schemes into motion by activating sleeper cells across several imperial worlds along the star-spanning warp route connecting Ultimus with Norris and the Omnreach. He infiltrated small, carefully selected teams of killers and chaos forces, exacerbating the conflict and destabilizing the route, thereby threatening vital supply lines and trade. Alongside military manipulations, Atali engaged with renegade champions and heretical bands within his sanctum on the moon of Yoria. There, he promised these followers power and arcane rewards in exchange for their assistance. They launched diversionary assaults on key Imperial task forces, aimed at drawing reserves away from Ultimus. The goal was clear: to leave the Imperial command with insufficient forces to defend the sanctum or respond effectively to a direct attack. Meanwhile, Atali's sorcerer lieutenants worked to undermine General Grismond, commander of Ultimus's forces. They sent nightmares and visions of catastrophe to sap the general's confidence and courage. These psychological assaults ignited a sense of dread in Grismond, who witnessed the flames of chaos spreading along the star-spanning route. Determined to counteract this growing crisis, Grismond resolved to act decisively. However, his responses proved overly aggressive. In a swift, heavy-handed move, he dispatched more than half his fleet and most of his garrison units, including several Titan-class war machines, to secure the critical route. This formidable force was tasked with a major operation of reconquest and defense. Soon, they detected distress signals emanating from Norris, compelling them to respond to the plight of the Mechanicus explorers in need of aid. Amidst a tumult of chaos, the cult of the Thra bands launched an assault upon the planet, initiating widespread destruction. Within this conflict, Scar's forces were severely battered, yet his ally within the cult of prophecy discerned the exact moment to strike. Seizing this opportunity, he summoned demonic allies to confront the renegade warbands that had once pledged loyalty to him, only to turn against him in the midst of their own crusade. These warbands, caught between their imperial adversaries and the ravenous demons, faced brutal slaughter. Their sacrifice, however, served a dark purpose. It attracted the attention of the Lord of Change, who commanded the demons summoned through a short-lived warp storm enveloping Narus. Though the storm was destined to burn out within 9 weeks, it proved long enough to trap over half of Ultimus's garrison forces. But Atali's schemes did not end there. He dispatched warbands of Tangor to the agricultural worlds of Horth and Kadak, where they raised flux kens and secreted mutagenic, magic-infested supplies intended for Ultimus's food stores. Swearing a blood pact, he enlisted a sorcerer from the Cult of Time to orchestrate a raid on the planet Desmar. Through their mastery of temporal magic, Atali's allies reversed a decade of history on Desmar, erasing the last 10 years of events from the world's timeline. Though this rewriting was only temporary, as fate would have it, the alteration created ripples through the fabric of space and time, causing 4 of Ultimus's regiments, designated as the Desari, to vanish without a trace, their existence erased from memory. Finally, Atali initiated his invasion of Ultimus with overwhelming forces, deploying a vast array of warships, a demi-manche of Titans, and merely 3 regiments of Astra Militarum. Despite their fierce resistance and fighting with desperation, the Imperial forces were plagued by a mysterious pandemic of mutations spreading through tainted rations. Outmatched in sheer strength, they could not turn the tide. Atali seized the talisman of glass from the ruins of Ultimus, safeguarding his personal sanctum and crippling a major fleet group, the Indominus, under the command of Quentus. This crippled the fleet's capability while undermining his most hated rival, Rahadi Hakali. Meanwhile, investigations and inquisitions into how General Grismond's forces left Desmar unprotected persisted for years. Every development in this ongoing struggle benefited Hakali's schemes, as chaos and conflict within his enemy's ranks created opportunities for his own rise.